Thank you, Uzi. And the last speaker is Ambassador Daniel Shapiro, U.S. Ambassador to Israel. Good afternoon. Hello, Professor Zaki. Shalom. Thank you very much for inviting me. And General in Reserves Yadlin, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this important conference. My speech will be in English, but with your permission, I'll conclude with a small segment in Hebrew.
I really appreciate the opportunity to come and join my good friends, Uzi Arad and Ambassador Blackwell, and join our colleagues at the Institute for National Security Studies who continue to do groundbreaking work on the region's security challenges as well as the opportunities, as Ambassador Oded Iran just illustrated in the presentation of findings of the research group on U.S.-Israel relations. Now, there's no question that from the minds of the United States government, Israel is a strategic asset to the United States, and the relationship between our country is as strong as it's ever been because of the common interests and common values that underlie it. The truth is, as we think about our own security interests in the Middle East and our own interest in stability in this region, we cannot talk about those things without talking about the U.S.-Israel partnership, because that partnership really is one of the cornerstones for regional stability, one of the foundations upon which all our efforts towards regional stability are based. Now, today, in keeping with the theme of this session, I'm going to speak about the special relationship between Israel and the United States, the ties that are rooted in shared values and people-to-people ties, our unshakable commitment to Israel's security, which is a reflection of this bond, but which is also a relationship that doesn't benefit just Israel. It's a two-way street. Both of us benefit from the extraordinary level of our security and intelligence cooperation. And our bond is also reflected in how we view the challenges and opportunities of the upheaval sweeping this region and of our common goal of a prosperous, democratic Jewish state of Israel living in peace and security alongside a sovereign state of Palestine. And of course, there's no better example of the common bond between us than our coordination on the issue of Iran. So I want to update you on how we see that challenge coming out of the Baghdad round of talks. Now, as I mentioned, President Obama has observed that the deep partnership between the United States and Israel is rooted in people-to-people ties. It's based on shared values, common ideals. All of these common ideals explain our dedication to Israel, which is the democratic example for this part of the world, and also explain our commitment to Israel's security. I'll speak more in a moment about our commitment to Israel's security, but I want to underline the fundamental principle, which is that the special relationship between the United States and Israel starts from the proposition, at least on our side, that a flourishing, strong, secure, Jewish, democratic state of Israel is a fundamental interest of the United States. All our policies in the region seek to promote that goal. Our security cooperation, our approach to the Palestinian issue, our approach to the changes in the Arab world, and of course, our approach to the issue of Iran. The strategic reason for that principle is that Israel is our most reliable ally in the Middle East. It's the region's only stable democracy. It's a stellar security partner. We face many common threats, terrorist organizations, Iran, instability in this region, and each of us bring unique capabilities to those struggles, making us more effective together than either of us could be individually. So it's very much in our interests to strengthen such a reliable partner. But of course, there are also moral reasons. Israel and the United States share the values of two democracies, committed to freedom, to justice, to peaceful relations with others. And of course, in addition to the ancient ties of the Jewish people to this land that compel us to support determination for the Jewish people in the historic homeland, the weight of Jewish history, a history of anti-Semitism and persecution, adds to that imperative. As I said, at the heart of U.S.-Israel relations is our commitment to Israel's security. Over the decades, as everyone here knows, America has invested billions of dollars in Israel's security, always with the goal of ensuring that Israel has the means to defend itself by itself. With strong bipartisan support through administrations of both parties and with the support of both houses of Congress, We provide roughly $3 billion in annual military assistance that enables Israel to purchase the most advanced U.S. military technology, including the most recent acquisition, or soon-to-be acquisition, the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter, the world's most advanced fighter aircraft. The Obama administration has increased funding for Iron Dome and other missile defense programs to protect Israel from terrorists who fire on innocent civilians. The Obama administration has also deepened and strengthened the exchanges and the ties between our military and intelligence services. And I just respectfully will disagree with Ambassador Blackwell about what he suggested about the personal relationship between President Obama and Prime Minister Netanyahu. Those strong ties that flow all the way down through the ranks of our governments, our militaries, our intelligence services are designed and directed by the two leaders at the top who have the trust in each other and the identification of the common interests to execute that policy and direct their governments to do the same. So that security coordination from the highest levels down to the working levels has reached unprecedented heights. All of this assistance and coordination reflects a commitment of the United States to preserve Israel's qualitative military edge so that Israel, as I said, can defend itself by itself against any threat it may face. But we don't just ensure Israel's ability to defend itself. The United States will also always support Israel's right to defend itself and its citizens. This is not a statement that should be taken lightly. At a time when a campaign of delegitimization against Israel continues around the world, much of it focused on depriving Israel of the right to defend itself and its citizens from attack, the United States has made clear that we will oppose these efforts in every form in which they occur. But our security relationship, as I said, is not simply about what America does for Israel. It's about what we do together. Many of the challenges and threats that Israel faces, America faces as well. When President Obama describes bonds between the United States and Israel that are unbreakable and a commitment to Israel's security that's ironclad, he knows that Israel's contribution and its commitment to America make this a two-way street in ways that are good for Israel and good for the United States. And you can ask any military commander in the United States Army or United States military who has worked with an Israeli partner, and they would back that up. Now, of course, we share another goal, which Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke about last night, and that's to ensure that Israel remains a secure, Jewish, democratic state. As I said, that's the Israel that's been such a stellar partner for us. That's a goal that runs as a common thread through our entire government. It's a litmus test for our policies. And, of course, it's inseparable from our determination to see the state of Israel living in peace and security alongside a sovereign state of Palestine. Two states for two peoples. Israel as a Jewish state and the homeland for the Jewish people, and independent Palestine as the homeland of the Palestinian people, each side enjoying self-determination, mutual recognition, security, and peace. Now, to be clear, a peace agreement is not a silver bullet that will remedy all of Israel's security challenges. Prime Minister Netanyahu is right about that. But an agreement along the lines outlined by President Obama 1 year ago, a realistic agreement reached through direct negotiations between the party that ensures Israel's security and leads to two states for two peoples, would fundamentally improve Israel's strategic picture. It would secure the Zionist dream of a democratic state with a stable Jewish majority. It would enhance Israel's international standing and enable the strengthening of many of its relationships. It can also open the door to engaging with Arab publics who will now, in light of the upheavals in the Arab world, have a greater say in their own governance and foreign policy. Now, as we've said many times, this conflict can only be resolved through direct negotiations. It cannot be resolved by unilateral measures by either side. It cannot be resolved through appeals to the United Nations, which we have and will continue to oppose. We've been crystal clear that the core issues of the conflict can only be resolved through direct negotiations. There have been recent meetings between the parties, first with the help of the Jordanian government and under the auspices of the Quartet, that have led to direct contacts, including an exchange of letters between President Abbas and Prime Minister Netanyahu. We hope this exchange can lead to additional dialogue on substantive issues of concern for both sides, while at the same time preserving the impressive gains that have been achieved on the ground by increasing security cooperation between Palestinian and Israeli security forces and by strengthening the viability of the Palestinian Authority under Prime Minister Salam Fayyad. This dialogue, if it's serious and realistic, can help the parties gain what has most been lacking throughout our efforts, the mutual confidence that they each have a partner with whom they can achieve their goals. There are other challenges in this region, of course, on which the United States and Israel coordinate closely. From Tunis and Tripoli to Sana'a and Cairo, straight on through to Damascus, people have taken to the streets to insist that their governments respect them and reflect their legitimate political and economic aspirations. Many in Israel, quite understandably, are watching this process with concern, unsure of the implications for Israel's security and of the instability that has accompanied these upheavals. For the United States and Israel, the transitions in the Arab world pose both opportunities and challenges. The peoples of the Arab world are going to determine their own destiny now. That's clear. What we have to do, and what we are doing, is aim to strengthen the forces in Arab societies that believe in and promote democratic values. We need to make clear what those values are, that every new regime must respect the universal rights of its own people, freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of political activity, that they must govern transparently, that they must honor the rights of women and minorities, they must reject violence, and they must honor international commitments and agreements. And in the case of Egypt, of course, must honor the Treaty of Peace with Israel. As we have throughout the transition, we will emphasize that last priority with whatever government emerges from the elections in Egypt. But at a time of great uncertainty and change, we have deepened our coordination with Israel. We both recognize there's significant risk and opportunity in the changes in the Arab world. The opportunity, which shouldn't be ignored, is presented by the emergence over time of peaceful, stable, democratic regimes. That's undeniable. We must work for it, supporting those in the Arab world who share those goals. Israel, after all, has never enjoyed the benefits of democratic neighbors. But these outcomes are far from guaranteed. They would take years, not months, to be realized. And in any case, as has been stated, they're beyond the ability of the United States and Israel to control. So at the same time as we try to maximize those opportunities, we need to work together, we are working together, to prevent, to mitigate, and be prepared to deal with the real risks from this period, whether it's from terrorists using Sinai as a base of operations or instability in Syria. And throughout this period, we'll remain as committed as ever to helping Israel deal with any threat to its security, as we did when President Obama intervened to help rescue Israelis trapped in the Israeli embassy in Cairo last September. Now, I want to focus the balance of my remarks on the issue of Iran. There's no better example of the close bond between our countries than the United States and Israel's shared determination to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. Uzi, maybe you could have given part of my speech, since you know our policy so well. As President Obama said in his March speech to AIPAC, no issue is higher on the agenda of the United States and Israel than preventing Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons. At every stage, we have conducted the most intensive, high-level, intimate consultations to ensure that our efforts are fully coordinated. Just this weekend, immediately after negotiations in Baghdad, senior U.S. officials involved in the P5+1 talks visited Israel and discussed the recent talks in Baghdad with senior Israeli officials for many hours. It's a sign of how close this relationship is and the level of trust between us that we were prepared to share details of the talks with Israel that we had not yet fully briefed to our own government in Washington. So over many months, through this extraordinarily close, high-level coordination, the United States and Israel have developed a common understanding of the threat of a nuclear Iran, a common intelligence basis upon which to judge the progress of the Iranian nuclear program, a common goal of preventing Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon, a common strategy, together with many other nations, to use unprecedented sanctions and economic pressure to induce Iran to change course through a diplomatic process. We also have a shared preference to try to resolve this issue diplomatically, but importantly, we also have a shared principle that no options are off the table to achieve our goal. And President Obama has been clear that we fully respect Israel's sovereign right and responsibility to make its own decisions to safeguard its security. Now, nuclear-armed Iran is not just an existential threat to Israel. It would pose a grave threat to the security of the United States, our allies, and the world. It would heighten the possibility that nuclear weapons could fall into the hands of terrorist organizations. It would spark a nuclear arms race in this volatile region. It could collapse the global non-proliferation system. And a nuclear umbrella would embolden Iran in its support for terrorist organizations like Hezbollah, Hamas, and other groups, and threaten freedom of navigation in the Persian Gulf. It would simply be too dangerous to permit this regime, which calls for Israel's destruction, sponsors terrorism, and seeks to dominate and intimidate its neighbors, to acquire nuclear weapons. As we apply all elements of American power to prevent a nuclear-armed Iran, the United States takes no option off the table. As President Obama has said, that means a political component aimed at isolating Iran as never before, a diplomatic effort to sustain our coalition and ensure the Iranian program is monitored, an economic effort to impose unprecedented crippling sanctions, and it means a military option. And as Secretary Panetta has assured us, we have done the planning to ensure that we are prepared for any contingency. We have mobilized the international community around this issue. Together with our international coalition, we have put in place the strongest sanctions that the Iranian government has ever faced, and we've expanded these sanctions to further target Iran's banking and petroleum sectors. We are urging all governments to further increase the pressure on Iran and to deepen the impact of these measures through sanctions against the Central Bank of Iran and concerted efforts to reduce Iran's oil revenues. We continue to work with oil-consuming countries to help them find alternatives to energy supplies from Iran, and many of them have reduced their purchases of Iranian oil. Our allies share our goals and are imposing measures of their own, such as the European Union's ban on Iranian oil purchases that will take hold in July. We also continue to deepen our defense partnerships in the region and build a robust regional security architecture that blunts Iran's ability to threaten and coerce its neighbors while carefully guarding Israel's qualitative military edge. And I want to pay tribute to my former colleague, Michel Flournoy, who has been one of the architects of that robust security posture in this region. We've enhanced our enduring U.S. force presence in the region and worked with partners to build their capacity, improve defenses, and protect critical infrastructure. Our efforts have reassured our partners and demonstrate unmistakably to Tehran that any attempt to dominate the region will be futile. We're sending a clear message to Iran that continued refusal to address the concerns of the international community about its nuclear program will result in an escalating series of consequences. In recent weeks, the United States has announced additional steps to increase the pressure on the Iranian regime. Last month, the President signed an executive order authorizing new sanctions against the governments of Syria and Iran and those that abet them for using technologies to monitor, track, and target citizens for violence. This novel sanctions tool allows us to sanction not just those oppressive governments, but the companies that enable them with technology, which the technology they use for oppression and the digital guns for hire who create and operate systems used for serious human rights abuses. And this month, President Obama signed a new executive order targeting individuals and entities that seek to evade our sanctions and undermine international efforts to bring pressure to bear on Iran and Syria. Taken in combination with the many other sanctions that have been imposed and continue to be implemented, we believe that such aggressive pressure could have an impact on Iran's strategic calculus. And changing Iran's calculus is essential to achieving a diplomatic solution. Recent behavior shows Iran's desperation in the face of growing pressure. Iran is isolated and seeking to divert attention from its behavior and domestic problems. Sanctions are having a significant impact on Iran's currency. Its economy has ground to a halt and unemployment has risen sharply. We've made progress in shrinking Iran's oil export markets and isolating its central bank from the world financial system. Even the Iranian regime's leadership has talked of the crippling effect sanctions have had on the Iranian economy. All this pressure and the additional pressure yet to come is what brought Iran back to the negotiating table in Istanbul and last week in Baghdad. Our objective in Baghdad was to get into detailed, serious discussions about a concrete, step-by-step, reciprocal approach for measures that Iran needs to take in the near term to address international concerns about its nuclear program. The P5+1 put forward a detailed proposal that offers a path for Iran to demonstrate that its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes. And we've been very clear from the start, and here again, we absolutely agree with our Israeli colleagues, that what we ultimately seek is for Iran to fully comply with all of its international nuclear obligations, including relevant UN Security Council resolutions. 2 days of intense and detailed discussions between Iran and a strongly unified P5+1 in Baghdad revealed significant differences, but also a narrow common ground. And we did agree on the need for further discussion to try to expand that common ground in Moscow in less than 3 weeks' time. As Lady Ashton said, the P5+1 are firm, clear, and completely united in seeking a swift diplomatic resolution of the international community's concerns. These issues will not be resolved overnight, and we have no illusions that Iran may try to use these negotiations to buy time. But we have been clear that there is no lessening of our demands. We are focused on results that lead to full Iranian compliance in a process that cannot be open-ended. It is up to Iran to follow through. The burden falls on Iran to demonstrate it is serious.
I will end in Hebrew, if I may. Our stance is clear. Just like Israel, the United States believes that Iran must meet all the demands and all the obligations it made to the world, including stopping all the enrichment of uranium, just as the resolutions of the Security Council of the UN have stated. And very soon the Iranian regime will have to take concrete steps to stop, to make the concerns go away with the Iranian nuclear program. We will do everything we can in order to achieve a diplomatic solution. However, even if there is a chance for a diplomatic channel with the backing, we will not stop with talks just because the window is closing. The window is about to close and the clock is ticking, and Iran has to change its ways. Just as the Secretary of State Clinton has said, the pressure must continue if we want to witness any progress towards a peaceful solution until Iran fulfills its obligations to the world in terms of nuclear. We will continue to increase the pressure. Please note that the sanctions, the most severe sanctions, have yet to be imposed, and we will not let go, we will not stop until we achieve our goal. Just as President Obama said, the policy, the United States policy, is to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons and not to accept a nuclear Iran. And just like Israel, the United States also focuses on concrete outcomes, and we will continue with the strict coordination, tight coordination with Israel to achieve the goals that are mutual for both countries. And at the end of the day, the United States will do everything it can in order to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ambassador Daniel Shapiro. Hearing these words and to hearing them in Hebrew, it's very encouraging. Thank you. The panel is now over.